any life transition, whether,
Yeah.
you're getting ready to launch the kids, or they're coming back. How do you not lose hope together? Like, I guess we're always going to be parents. I guess they're always going to be there. It was like time to process and a way to work together on making this next stage the best without growing apart, becoming a statistic.
That's the voice of Dr. Liz Jenkins. Today on Living Big Mindfully, we are talking connection, communication, and keeping or rekindling that spark, if you know what I mean. Dr. Jenkins is a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified connection coach with over 75,000 hours of working with women and couples. Dr. Liz is also the featured relationship expert for several popular online groups and podcasts. And she has been married for almost 40 years. Plus, Dr. Liz tries surfing for the very first time at 60. Proof that it's never too late to try something new and have a blast. I love this woman's passion, and we had so much fun, and I'm very excited about sharing this conversation with you today. Dr. Liz tells us a little bit about her background and how she's been led to doing the work that she does today. And then we take a deep dive and talk about so much, everything from reigniting connection, even if you've been married for decades, how to bring back the fun in relationships, and navigating relationship dynamics in retirement, which is such an important topic. Dr. Liz gives listeners tons of relatable real-life examples, practical tips, and strategies that we can all begin to use today. And no surprise, she wraps it all up with some really wise sage advice. Dr. Liz is offering listeners a free love languages guide and a connection call. All those links will be in the show notes. And lastly, just a couple of quick announcements. Everything we do here, from the podcast to the books to the communities, is all about supporting and inspiring you to live longer, stronger, and healthier. So if you haven't done so, grab your free copy from Panic to Peace, 12 Ways to Calm, a must if your loved one is struggling with any kind of stress, overwhelm, or anxiety. Or just join one of our safe, supportive online communities. Either way, we'd love to see you there. Everything can be found at katechampionauthor.com. As always, I thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Here's Dr. Liz. Hello, I want to welcome today Dr. Liz Jenkins. She's going to go by Dr. Liz. I am so excited and happy to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited that we're going to be chatting and sharing experiences and just having a great time, everything relationships and everything, just kind of life. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. So I did a little digging on you in the background. So I know that you're married, you've been married for a long time. Mm-hmm. You're also you work a lot with couples, and you're a fully qualified mental health professional, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist by trade. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And a connection coach for the other.
And a connection coach, this is what we're going to have so much fun talking about today.
Yeah.
So tell listeners a little bit about you and what you do and how did you come to do what you're doing? I love the backstory.
Okay. Well, I love it. So like you said, I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 38 years. And so I kind of cut my teeth in different, I want to say styles and different flavors of that transition of what was the best and most effective way to work with individuals and with couples. And I started to see a very big disconnect or disservice for my couples. Traditional couples therapy, couples counseling was really doing a disservice. It works really well for individuals because it's a real focus and you have that continuity. But when you throw two people into the mix together that are still hurting, they haven't repaired properly, there's maybe mistrust, and you haven't talked about something that hurts, and you go, okay, bye, see you later, we'll see you next week, or in 2 weeks, that didn't work, and it actually started more problems. Oftentimes couples would down the hallway or on the car ride home would start a fight, and they would perpetuate this cycle of recurring fights that don't get resolved, and they begin to confirm that they weren't a good match for each other. And so that, plus my own personal life, been married 36 years with adult daughters and lots of critters, and same guy, so 36 years with the same man. He's a sweetheart too. And I started seeing what worked in my world, what wasn't working in the therapy world, and what I did know. So I chose the coaching platform, and I can tell about more of it, but it's really, I wanted couples to feel the wins that I saw in my marriages, that I saw in them. I wanted them to feel successful and realize that it wasn't a personal flaw. Sometimes it was just skills and strategies that are outdated or mismatched for their union.
Wow, you said so much there. But first of all, what stood out with me was you've been married for 38 years. I mean, that deserves like a massive round of applause. How unusual is that? I mean, today we hear a lot about, the divorce rate, 51% of marriages end in divorce and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Is that unusual? Or are you just like superhumans? I mean,
I wish. So, well, we've been together 38 years, married for 36 years, just like for the technical, whatever gifts I get or I give are those milestones. I'm just teasing. I think that it comes with, yes, 36 years and enjoying our time together is tends to be kind of, I would say, more of an anomaly at times. 36 years with understanding that not all of the moments are great. Every relationship has ups and downs. We as individuals have up and downs, or we don't want to get out of bed, or we just not feeling ourselves, or we hate our life kind of thing. And why wouldn't that also show up in a marriage? And so part of what I want to do is also be a myth buster. And just because you're going through that season where it's tough and or you aren't getting along, or they don't see eye to eye, that it doesn't mean you've made the mistake. Obviously, right? Our younger selves, we hope they choose wisely and chose well, or chose well, choose wisely. But we only know what we know at that time period. And so as we grow and as we evolve and life throws things with us, we need to understand that some of these things is just that it's a life transition, and it's something that we're not necessarily equipped with. I mean, I'll share a little story about when we newly became new parents.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the person that's supposed to know better, right? She's supposed to have all that superpower you talk about. I know. So we have our first daughter. I did choose wisely and I chose well. So that does help. That did help. But so we're in the midst of a baby that doesn't sleep, round the clock, nurses every hour and a half type of thing. Still no excuse for what I did, except that I'm human and I'm real. So baby cries, she cries one time, and I just don't want to get out of bed. And so what I do, I pretend to be asleep and kind of gently kick my husband awake. And then he goes, oh, baby's crying, gets up and goes take care of the baby. Brings her to nurse and all that kind of stuff. Did it a second time. Okay. And at that second time, my husband says very quietly in the dark, says, I know that you're awake and you're pretending to be asleep. You just tell me you're tired or wake me up. I'll get the baby. But if you do that again, I'm not getting out of bed. All right. So very calmly, very good. That came, and I felt really bad because I thought, oh my gosh, how low have I gone? I dropped so low, but I'm human and we're all human. And so we make our repairs. We hope we have someone that has compassion and the tolerance in that moment to see and say, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. So, I love that. I love that. That's a great example, right? Of just you being, you not having your needs met, you've been exhausted, you're worn out, and he's also probably worn out, but you managed to kind of communicate through it and get back on track in a
right time. And so we're going to have those moments and understanding that happens. And even if he hadn't handled it so nicely, that's a life transition. Both of us are new, fatigued, overstressed, don't know what, parents that probably were maybe encouraging the baby to wake up a few extra times than they needed to, according to a very wise neighbor. But she's like, no, we're going to help her sleep train. So, give yourself grace, give your partner grace, your spouse grace, and recognize, it happens to all of us. It's just what we do with those moments, I think.
Beautiful
and that
story.
So it goes back to 36 years later. It's a series of moments where sometimes they're great and sometimes they weren't. And we just kind of work through them, and we are committed to each other.
Yeah, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the state of affairs? What is, again, everybody's on social media, they see all the divorces, they see the misery, really, like the doom and gloom and the misery. What is really the state of affairs with long-term marriages? Are people divorcing later in life, 50s and 60s, or are we seeing people stick together? What is the general state out there, in your opinion?
Okay. Well, there's the media side of it, right? That writes the titles and says there's this great gray divorce going on. And, 40% of long-term marriages, I think that was one of the things I saw, was people are divorcing, and women are the most likely to be the one initiating the divorce and stuff. And so you're always going to have that portion of the people leave or divorce, or simply, I have a lot of people that I want to say quietly divorced. I mean, they're not really even divorced. They're sort of separated and they're living individual lives. I think, or I know that longer term marriages, if the focus has been on the future, our kids, our careers and things, as we approach a different life transition called maybe aging, retirement, health changes, empty nesters type of thing. In fact, I've redesigned it. I've changed the name that for me, and I'm working on a little book on that, but it's redesigning nesters, because empty sounds so bad. So it's like, right. And so oftentimes couples have been so focused on these activities that they needed to do that in that life period, in that season of the family life, that they needed to do that. When some of that load lightens up, we're kind of at loss, and we're sort of circling. And so sometimes that kind of lack of direction, people misinterpret it as like we've grown apart. And it really hasn't. We just haven't figured out what's the next thing for us. I don't know, maybe some of the folks in your audience, or I remember like having finished big exams, and that was all my focus, exam, and you finish. And I was like this little caged animal, like, I got to read something, got to study something. I was like reading the backs of cereal boxes, because until I learned how to relax into that. And so I think that's part of why we're seeing folks, that the divorce happening, is that they are reaching a different part of their life. Some have grown apart, but they haven't worked to see if they can grow back together again in a different one. Some have seen themselves as parents and not as partners, as spouses, as that adventuresome. And so when I'm working with older, longer term, couples, we really go back to the early years. We go back to the early years with everyone. I want you to remember why you came together. What was the energy? What was the spark? What was the fun? And 9 times out of 10, they remember the early days and what was fun. They all light up, but they haven't brought that into the now. And so when they start doing that and created a new now, they come back together and they find some common ground and some future goals together. So I think that for anyone that's contemplating staying in the relationship or not staying in there, or getting scared, the media can great titles and can take some data out of perspective or focus on the moment. The key is just focus on what's in your heart and what's in your relationship. Get expert advice. Yes, pay attention to some of the statistics, but also don't go running out and following that trend. I did I know. I just said, "Oh, don't listen to statistics." But I did see this other one. It was validated with some research, and these researchers evaluated couples that had divorced, and they found that 95% of the people that had divorced, earlier and older, if they had have understood a couple items, they wouldn't have divorced. So only like 5% said, yeah, was the betrayal, the trust, or the violence that they couldn't get out of. And some of those, that 95%, if they had have understood what the impact of careers and parenting was going to be, if they had have understood a little bit more about finances, and then the outside influences in their lives, like in-laws and friends and things like that, they wouldn't have divorced. They would have worked it through. So,
yeah.
One other just quick thing. They're back in, I don't know, it was about 2008-ish when we had the recession, not recession kind of thing. What I found that was a lot of couples who were coming in initially and they were like, we got a divorce. We hate each other's guts. This is it. We're throwing in the towel. When we started talking about divorce and what that meant, they started to realize that at that point in time, because of the way the economy was, they couldn't afford to divorce financially. They couldn't. So we figured out, how do you get along with someone that you don't? And as they started to spend some time together, and they were still, they're working on it, a high number of those people said, you know what? We came together as a team. We remembered the big things, the big ticket items that we needed, and we're going to stay together. We're going to change some things up. A few of them said we got past the anger and got to a place of, we're going to part gently as friends, and we're going to co-parent, or if there were kids, or co-critter parent. But a very small percentage of those people, once they had the financial opportunities, divorced aggressively and, went to court and did those kind of things. So
yeah, that's fascinating. So it's leading me to ask a couple of questions, or think about a couple of things. And it's probably, I don't know, part of me saying, oh, you probably shouldn't ask that. And the other part of saying, I'm really curious. So let's,
I'm curious too now, Kate.
So two questions today. How has the pandemic affected couples, right? How is this? That's one of them. And the other one, because I see this a lot. In fact, I had an inquiry just 2 weeks ago about a woman in her, 40s or so, maybe mid 40s, early 50s, and struggling with older kids, like on that late teen. And so much has changed in her relationship that the couple is struggling with a difference in religion and a difference in politics. And it's like, I read her email. I thought, holy moly, I'm not going to touch that. That's not true. That's not true. We are going to meet, but whatever. So tell me a little bit about, because those have been big things. And
landmines.
People talk about the pandemic, no big deal, but people don't talk about the differences, the political differences in couples, marriages, partnerships that have been really pronounced over the last few years. So I don't know if you're comfortable touching that or not.
Oh, sure. Why not? Let's just step in the landmine, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And we do it every day anyway. Okay. Absolutely. The pandemic, it's over and it's past. Well, it still has a lot of lingering things. I have couples that have come to work with me over the get the COVID vaccine versus not get the COVID vaccine. Or one parent did, so let's say it's myself and my husband. Let's say I had the shot, but my husband, for personal reasons and also his doctor's advice with his medical office, said, don't do that. Then let's say we had a daughter and her husband and a couple grandkids. Well, all of a sudden now, we as grandparents were always getting to see our grandkids. We go pick them up from school. We do those kind of things. And our daughter and son-in-law have said, no, both of you have to be vaccinated, or it's a no-go. Or I've had others that said, you can be, during the quarantine, if you go someplace and come back, like you go to the market, you're not wearing your mask, you cannot see or join the family events. So the pandemic put some real hard I want to say, philosophical, not necessarily 100% factual and agreeable positions. And it left many families fractured, and some are still fractured all these years on. In this one particular case where, let's say it's me that was vaccinated and my husband wasn't, and then my daughter acquiesced and said, yes, you can come see the grandkids, but you have to wear. If I said yes and went and visited them, and in my mind, I think I'm being good, I'm going to share what grandpa and I are doing, and we brought some little treats and toys, and I'm being this ambassador. When I get home, we talked about that dynamic. Now I'm the bad guy, I'm the traitor. So I'm stuck at this middle dilemma, and my hubby's not seeing it that way. And so that created really big fractures and problems in couples that were really healthy and doing well in their almost retirement ages or retirement ages. So that that is still, there as an issue and as a problem, which is similar to when we're talking about political perspectives, religious perspectives, or beliefs. Absolutely. When we've had some particular recent elections, I had people take to bed with depression over the ends of the elections. I've had families where they literally could not sit down and have any kind of conversation. And even when you said the absolute, like, no politics, no religion, and somebody made any kind of hint, it was, World War III. So hot topics without knowing how to set those aside or how to agree to disagree are huge. To address this listener and this woman that has reached out to you about the differences in the politics and the religion, according to Dr. John Gottman's research, 69% of the things that couples fight about are unsolvable at that moment. That means that I didn't know that. I thought, certainly that's wrong, I got to reread it, type of thing. We only agree carte blanche on 31% of the time, right? So 31% of the time, I can, without a heartbeat, I can tell you exactly what we're going to agree on. So let's say that politics, as it's coming up right now, is part of that 69% in your relationship. We have to come up with strategies to be able to bring that hot topic out, have maybe a discussion, realizing I can't change their position and they can't change my position. And so how do we come up with an agreement to live with this in our relationship and not lose our relationship? Setting it aside, right? And be able at another time come back and say, hey, have you changed your political vote side? Nope. Okay, right. And sometimes those drop off as they go. As we have a new election, that one may just simply go away by itself. And as couples, we can sit back like, can you imagine when we were just about ready to call it quits, or I painted the line down the house and said, you stay on that side of the type of thing. Okay. So sometimes they sort of age out or just disappear.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe my position changes. I've had a lot of folks say, I'm going to vote differently this time. So that shift maybe aligns the couple as they change. And so now that we got 32% that we agree upon and only 68 at the moment that we disagree on. And so understanding this is normal, in a relationship, it is not something that makes you mismatch or wrong or should go straight to the separation or divorce. You're two individuals with brilliant brains and different life experiences and different values, and it's how you blend them. Religion, that's a biggie. It's something that not all couples talk about when they're first dating or then they have kids. And sometimes people's religious beliefs and values change, right? That's okay.
This absolutely happens with me. Absolutely. When people, through the lifetime, people evolve. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hope we evolve. I hope we evolve. And things that maybe we liked before necessarily aren't great there. So understanding it, and we have to learn, really ways to appreciate each other's perspective. And that doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. It means that they're seeing it differently for the moment, and they may again evolve, or you may again evolve. Ideally, couples the couples that are successful have the ability to influence each other, not sway them, but be able to see the other person's perspectives. Like, I can see why you're saying that. And I really don't, I disagree on this nuance of it, but I can see now why you're so adamant about that.
Yeah. Which takes a whole kind of flexible growth, kind of open mindset, right? To be able to do that, to be able to say, yeah, that's not really where I lie, but I can see what you're thinking. I can see how you're feeling. Yeah, I can see your perspective.
And yes, absolutely. And it also takes really effective communication skills. There's certain trigger words, like, why do you want to vote for that person? Or, can't you see, are you like an idiot that there isn't this or there isn't that? And so we can incite, in our energy to convince them, or, break through what we think is their blind spots. We can trigger conversations. Why is conflict conversations. Why is a really hotbed? Because when I, ask you, well, why'd you change your religion, Kate? Well, I was like, Liz,
now
why?
You feel a little defensive, right? It's like, whoa, yeah.
Why'd you eat the last cookie, Liz? Is there a right answer? Because I was hungry, because I wanted to be selfish, and I wanted it, and I didn't want to share. I mean, what is the right answer in that thing?
Right. And you feel really on the spot. Even in that moment, I thought, whoa, that's a big question, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to tell me. And it'd be more like different word. It'd be like, hey, I'm just curious. How come? Or I'm just curious, what had you change your perspective on your religion? I know that was something that you were really passionate about for many and focused on for many years. And now you've changed it. And maybe you'd be asking me, like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What, I thought chocolate chip cookies were off your list. You're losing weight. I know. It called to me.
Yeah. And I love the cute coming at it with what I felt then was this kind of heartfelt curiosity, right? Versus this kind of defensive, almost blamey, finger pointing kind of energy. There's a big difference between those two things. Big difference. Yeah.
And I love that it felt better for you, because if we think back to our early times in our relationships, a lot of it was us being really curious about the other person. We wanted to talk. We wanted to hear them talk. We wanted to hear their perspectives. And over time, some of us get a little more brittle about that, or a little more, this. And so getting curious helps us also see our partners and our spouses in today. Getting curious has us letting them open up. And oftentimes in that opening up and letting them talk, maybe they have a perspective, or maybe they're right. And I hadn't thought about that. Or maybe it's just like, oh, wow, okay, I hear you. I'm still having a hard time, wrapping my head around it, but let me think about it. So we got to go back to some of the things that we used to do when we were in those early stages of being curious, trying to clean up some of our words that we don't necessarily intend to trigger.
Yeah, I think curiosity and language are really, really important. So what would you say to that couple who has been, years together, it has been a lot about, the kids and the to-do list and the working and, I know there's no visual here, but my hands are they're together, right? And then you kind of get apart, and then it's like, then you get to this point, the kids leave, there's off
Yeah.
out the house. And then it's like, okay, how, and there's often disconnect and distance and,
Mm-hmm.
people change. And that's generally 2 decades, right? Especially today when young
Oh,
people are
yeah,
home.
we take the sandwich generation and
Right. Yeah.
failure launch, or little boomerangs that they come
Yeah.
back. Sometimes this life bring, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's kind of, there's kind of a lot going on there. And then also we're over that 2 decades, people can really, really can drift apart, right? They can
Absolutely.
grow a lot. Someone's growing, the other person isn't, whatever. So what would you say to that couple that's kind of coming back? They're trying to figure this out. They've, a little bit of distance, a little bit of disconnect, not much intimacy. Coach us through that.
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right when you talked about where we've successfully launched our kids, right? And it's been, or we're even if there are couples that don't have children, maybe our child was our career or our hobbies type of things. And we've launched them, we're enjoying them. And then our partners are ready to join us. I guess the biggest thing is putting a pin drop and realizing we're in a different stage of a life, almost like a different planet type of thing. Our routines are possibly off. Our health, our aging, our, things that we used to be able to do, maybe for some people, retirement came abruptly. They hadn't planned it. So here's like this racehorse, and they got laid off, because they're, they earned so much, or there was a health issue and they pull back. And so we are needing to get curious with ourselves about our emotions. Like, who am I at this point in time? I was always, before I was Liz, then I was, fiance, and then wife, and then mother, and then a mother, not of a newborn, but, how do we start seeing ourselves? Because people use labels to help us identify who we are. I'm a therapist, I'm a connection coach, I'm a this, I'm a that. And when some of those labels no longer fit, or they've been forced on us, we have to one thing, what's fun? Many of my couples, by the time they've been doing it, they've been so focused on doing the right thing, whether it's at their careers or the kids, or, or they think of giving to the other person, that they've sort of lost themselves. And how is your partner going to be a mind reader? And how is your partner going to match your stride in this next step if you don't even know what's important to you?
That is a great point. Great point. Great point. I listened to one of the podcasts you were on the other day, and you really talked about this kind of gap between, A, between age, and B, between stages of retirement. So one person's working and the other person happens to be retired. And maybe there's that 5-year age gap. Maybe there's, that's a very different place in life for those two people. And really kind of touched on that. And I thought that was really powerful. Kind of, it's not something you think about. It's certainly not something I thought about going into my marriage, right? It's like, oh, one day we're going to be this and that and the other. It's like,
I know. What? Right. One of my couples, initially they were part of the pandemic and the vaccine and not vaccine. And so he was retired because he was older, and she was actively working full time, and he was getting impatient. And so she's, well, I plan to retire. I said, well, let's just talk about that. She was reluctant to retire for many reasons, but she had never shared those with her husband. Finances, although they were set, there still isn't her identity. She didn't want to be home all day. She couldn't be fully fulfilled the way he was doing all things around the house. She still needed a passion project. So part of our work together was coming up with a time frame for her. Was going to be a couple of years out. She was going to be 70. That's when she wanted to retire. And what were we going to do in those next 2 years for her to start thinking and designing, sharing her plan, kind of get a little bit out, fleshing out with him, helped him go, we're on the same track. I'm optimistic. I can adjust with this. I'm looking forward to when you're 70. So I said, so now we need to dream forward, because this is what, again, we did when we were, early. That's now we're going to dream forward in this one. What does being retired or semi-retired look like for you, both of you? And he was also, I've got this whole list of vacations. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, I know what we're going to be doing. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want to do that. Because, well, then we'll do the motorhome. And I do not want to be on the road, 200 days out of the year. So right there, they started rediscussing and talking and mapping out. That gave them, again, a new goal to come together on. That gave him some reassurance and security that she was going to step away from being gone all the time, even though she worked from home. And he was happy that she had a hobby passion that she was going to pursue, but he felt he was going to get to have time with the wife that he loved. And she was happy that he wasn't expecting her to be on the road 200 plus days out of the year and burn through their savings by traveling the world multiple times. So it's some of that. We have the fear versus the reality.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's pretty common, I would imagine, that everybody is in their own kind of mindset about what they want. But I love this idea about kind of creating this kind of dream together, this dreaming forward, but coming, like, it's almost like, figuring out figuring out what she wants, and then seeing what are the touch points, right, where you can kind of meet in the middle a little bit.
Right. And it's having a little bit of it out of your head and out on the table can be scary or vulnerable, or you don't have to know the answers. Neither of you have to know the answers. I wouldn't expect you to, but starting to kind of flesh it out. And that's why I call it redesigning nesters, is that we are redesigning this next stage and this next level. I had a brilliant exec. She was so smart. And I said, can I steal this idea from you? But she had planned, she had been busy corporate travel, corporate work the whole time. And she was getting close. I think she had 7 years to retire. And so she took these beautiful vases, 7 of them, and she put 12 beautiful blue stones in each of those. And she said, every month that I finish, that I take this stone and I put it into this other bigger vase. And they were in her window. And so every month, and that gave her a visual reminder of, and so she was gently stepping into retirement. And as she started doing that, she started thinking, what do I need to do? I need to clear this house out. I need to start, I need to, maybe when I do all this travel, I need to not just be so corporate. I need to say, is this a place that I might want to retire on or temporary? So she had transition time. It was just her. She was single. But she also had, some family living in the house that she'd always provided home for them so they could stay. So they were part of the transition, and she was starting to let them know that when it was done, this house was going to be sold, but she would help them in an apartment so that they could have their own, own place and still remain, independent and not have to worry about that. Very well thought out, very gracious, very kind, but also really good boundaries. That I'm just not going to stay in this big, huge house and do nothing. And I think for the other couple, the husband and wife that he's retired, having his wife pick a date, an age that she wanted to retire, helped, like those blue stones that they could then start marking it. And so that maybe is something for your listeners out there that are any life transition, whether, you're getting ready to launch the kids, or they're coming back. How do you not lose hope together? Like, I guess we're always going to be parents. I guess they're always going to be there. How do you guys come together and create a plan and be able to mark some of those blue stones that gives you guys, I would say, time to process and a way to work together on making this next stage the best without growing apart, becoming a statistic.
Yeah. You mentioned that language, make that kind of struck me, right? Make this next stage the best. I just think there's just so many myths too about this next stage. You're right. I'm just turning 60. My husband's 65. So we're in that, in that kind of corridor.
Yeah.
And then, and again, there's a lot of, that's why I do what I do. There's a lot of negativity about kind of aging and later in life and relationships and the doom and gloom. And I am not going to sit on the porch and on a rocking chair for the next 20 years.
We're rocking. For those who can't get the visual, we're rocking.
Right?
I'm not rock and roll.
Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But there's so many people that feel like that's what we should be doing, but that's not really what we're wanting to do. I think this season, and particularly this generation, we're the first generation that really has like tons of options. We're kind of redesigning this next season.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
It's a lot. You opened up another thing. Absolutely. But I'm right in there, with Kate. I'm 63. I'll be 64 in June. And my husband then will be 69. So we have that, and so he's actively retired. And my goal is to be kind of like the other lady, like still continue to do what I love doing. Can you imagine me not having people to talk to all day long, but you? Oh, heck no. We'll have some fun with that. And now if there's options are we can do these things like I do, I'm 100% remote. So I'm talking to people and working with people. I have people in Israel. I have people all over the place that, that I'm working with. And so this is a season of more opportunities if we approach it from that, instead of what not, but what's yes. There is a beautiful song that Toby Keith wrote and sang right before he passed away about don't let the old man in. And there's a line in there, and I hope not slaughter it, but it says, how old would you be if you didn't know the date you were born? And when people say, oh, shit, you're almost 64, oh my God, what are you doing? Kind of thing. Or you go around soliciting, like, somebody give me a compliment. I don't look 64 or even 63 in 3/4. Do I? Nuh-uh. So if you don't age yourself by putting that out there, I think you're going to be happier with wherever you are, and you're also going to open up the doors to more things. Because I think, Kate, you're right. If we felt ourselves, let's say, I don't know, 40, 38, 40, we'll do that. We're going to age backwards. There's a whole lot of things that we say, oh, I want to do this. You want to write more books. You want to continue to pocket. You want to do this. I want to do that. I got to get my books off the brain and off of some of the rough drafts and to do that, and if we say, oh, but I'm this age, well, I think I shared with you that I recently learned to surf a couple of years ago. Yeah. Okay. What 61-year-old goes out and learns how to surf? Well, this one did. I
love that. Yeah, I love that. I love that. But that's an amazing example, right? That is an example. We are still vibrant. We're still thriving. There's a whole bunch of opportunity out there. Yeah. I want to hear more about your surfing sidebar. I want to hear about the more, because a lot of my work is later with life people that are getting out there, they're, hiking and running and surfing and all the rest of it. So tell us about that.
Well, that, I want to say, jump into that at this point is from my husband. My husband's an avid surfer. We were both born and raised in Southern California, and he's surfed forever. In fact, we still have 5 boards at the house, and we're in Texas. So, his one, it was Russell Roy. It's autographs and everything, but he has the ones that really, really work. So surfing has always been in his blood and in his passion. And so we were talking about, let's just go to a place we hadn't been. And we wanted to try to surfing. And Costa Rica came up, and Witches Rock and Tamarindo Beach for people that are kind of wondering. There's another place too. But he says, well, you could go surf too. I'm like, okay, all right. And so I started doing a little exercise, push. I did it, and it was great.
Wow.
When I went out there, just like, I'm just going to learn. And if I can get up on the board, I'm going to get up on the board. I was obviously beginner school, and I had all the heebie-jeebies, the apprehension. And I said, I'll
Sure.
just stay with you the first day or so, and, kind of make sure you're good. And like, okay, because I'm really, really worried, but it was fun. I got up, lasted a few seconds, and did that a few different times and stuff like that. I also fell and hurt myself, but that's okay. I would
Part of the process.
I do that in the garage sometimes, but it was okay. It's okay. And the next year we went back, and the weather wasn't great, so we didn't surf, but we explored and things. And then up here in Texas, in Waco, there's a surf park. So we went there, and I got even better. I think for me, it was not saying I'm only, or I'm 61, or I'm only going to be a successful surfer if I can stand up and look really great. It was just like, I'm up, I'm there, I'm balancing, I'm doing the things. And it felt like such an achievement. And then celebrating my wins and feeling good about it. That opened up the next level for me to say, what else? What else do you want to, let's try something else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm sitting with you, I'm kind of connecting with your energy, and there's just this energy of kind of the possibilities, right? Excitement, possibilities. And that's a beautiful example, honestly, of what you've been talking about, this stacked stages of where you might be, or people might be. And then you guys coming together, willing to come together around his surfing passion, traveling, kind of collaborating and making it happen. Yeah.
Well, and he sets a really great example. And back when we lived in Idaho, California and stuff, and I had horses at my grandparents growing up, and I really enjoyed them, miss them. But life and kids and all those things. And then when I was turning 40, he goes, well, why don't we get you a horse? Why can't you have a horse? He's more like why not? I'm like, so anyway, 5 horses later, everybody had a horse, plus we had extra horse, and and he, here's this guy and he got into that and took up horseback riding, and was really, really great. And he still remembers it. It's probably horseback riding is my passion, and surfing is still going to be his passion, but we still absolutely like that. Ski, all those types of things together. And so I think it's being willing to try, and being proud of yourself at whatever you tried to do. And that circles around to me with whatever age group you're in, or whatever season you're in. If you're struggling to be young parents, or you've got high need kids, or you're in that sandwich generation where you have older parents that you're still taking care of or having to keep an eye on, you have the younger kids, and then there's barely any time for the two of you. And it's like, don't give up, and be open to what you could do. Maybe finances are really tight, and time's really tight. What can you creatively do together in that moment, or plan ahead, and not just stay in that cycle? If you're facing a medical or a retirement or whatever type of thing, if you didn't know how old you were, right, and you didn't know what the rules were, the shoulds and shouldn't do, what does your heart tell you you'd like to be doing? What would, you guys, where would you like to see the two of you, if there's two of you?
Yeah, I love that. So let's just take a breath for a moment. I want to look at my notes here. So
I want to go surfing now, Kate.
Yeah, I hear you. I love the water and the beach. So it's so healing, so healing. So you talk about retiring together, navigating those relationship dynamics. Are there any more kind of tips or strategies that you might want to give to listeners today? Some kind of practical things to rebuild the connection, to rebuild the communication. Any practical things you might want to throw out there?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. When you're finding yourself at odds with your spouse, your partner, whether it's around something like retire now, don't retire, travel, don't travel, or it's more down to earth, like, can our son take the truck and go, to school and then go to the football game after that? Or can our daughter go, whatever type of thing? And you're at odds. The first thing I think you want to do is remember that both of you are on the same team. We got to, they're not the enemy. And if you're feeling very convicted about your side and they're not budging on their side, ask them, like, help me understand. You seem really dead set on, let's say, our son not taking the truck to school. He has his driver's license. He's not had any accident. He's been really good, but it's okay for him to go to school, but you don't want him to then take it to the football game and then to the pizza afterwards. What's wrong? Tell me what understands. Or you seem to be easier on our daughter, but you're harder on our son. Same couple kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to understand rather than judge. And in this is a real life couple. The gentleman shared when the three of us were talking, he said, what I'm concerned about with our son is he's at that age where, testosterone and energy and showing off. And I'm afraid he's going to drive too fast and either get into a crash or hit somebody. I know he's promised he doesn't drink and drive, and they were pretty adamant then. And he said, even if he's done nothing wrong, that time of night of being at the pizza parlor and coming home, I'm afraid he's going to get an accident. And so the wife just jumps boom on him, like, why? What's the big deal? He's never had an accident before. And he takes us back. The hubby takes us back to the moment that he was brought in by the police with her car had been totaled and she was still in the car, and they were trying to extricate the wife who at the time, before children time.
Wow.
And he was watching the helicopter come to airlift her, and they said, please say whatever you need to say with her because we don't know if she's going to make it. When he shared that with her, she got his why. He was so adamant that his son not be out there driving on the road at that time period. There was no more resistance. So then they were able to soften and come up with a compromise. And I said, for her, I said, what is it why are you so, convinced that he needs to take his truck and this and this? She says, I want him to be independent. I want him to have fun. I want him to experience the high school stuff because I didn't get to do that. All right. Both of them are coming from a place of love and wanting the best for that son, right? And so they came up with the strategies that would work. The differences between the parenting between the daughter and the son was that the father wanted his son to grow up to be a man of good morals and good work ethic and could provide well for a future family, because this man grew up with a father that didn't do that. And his daughter, he said, we still have time and I want her to, not depend on a man and all those kind of things. But with those moments when you're feeling like you're at odds, the biggest thing is like, just get in there and find, what do they value? What do you value? What's their fear? What's their fantasy fear?
Yeah.
All right. That anxiety doesn't have to be real. It's what goes through their mind. Right. And that actually becomes our reality. So that would be some of the things that I would talk to couples about that might see themselves at odds around that kind of dynamic.
Yeah. I love that, Dr. Liz. Thank you so much. Because that's such a different energy, right? You're not shaming, you're not blaming, you're not finger pointing, you're not elevated, right? You're not reacting, but you're really hopefully slowing down enough, right? To be able to think, okay, there's something bigger here, right? There's something more. And just asking a couple of those kind of questions.
Right. And in that moment, the wife became, when he recounted his experience on the roadside, she became very quiet, very empathetic. It brought tears to her eyes. She was completely out of it, obviously, because she had no idea what he had stored up and what he was trying to protect everybody. And so then she says, so that explains, okay, then she had her aha moment. So that explains, like when I say I'm leaving work, they had a business together. They have a business together. And she says, and I'm going to run, I got to go pick up some prescriptions and stuff like that. And I'm running late. And you call me and you say, where are you? It only takes you, 30 minutes to get home. She says, well, I got to do the prescription and I'm waiting in line. He says, oh, okay. Well, you coming home right after that? We said, well, I don't know. I was like, well, let me know. There was this anxiety because in his mind, he had map quested her, right?
Sure.
For 30 minutes safe through, bumper to bumper type of thing. And that brought his thing. That was her aha moment. And she stopped being irritated with him. And she started being more sympathetic and anxiety calming. And it didn't feel like it was dad checking in on her. It was a loving husband who had gone through something really traumatic and wanted to make sure she was okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what's coming up for me is we all go through things. We all have this stuff, right? We all have our wounds and our traumas and our, soft spots. And I really do think, seeing a couples therapist or a coach or, really getting that self-awareness and working through some of these things, if they keep coming up over and over again, it's just crucial, not only for yourself, but for yourself and for the relationship, for the couple. I would really encourage people to check in and get some help with that kind of communication.
Right. Yeah. Because, it's not just an investment in the relationship or in themselves. And we all think, do this for ourselves and do that. But you're doing this for your marriage, but you're also creating a legacy. I call it a legacy of love because your kids see it. Your social circles, your friends see how you communicate. And so without realizing it, you are demonstrating ways to talk to each other, to say please and thank you. And hey, do you need the help with that? Or, without them asking. And those things, especially if we have like the children kind of thing, but if we have, other adults around us, those go like, I never thought about being treated that nicely. Yeah. Or when I'm looking for somebody, I'm going to make sure that they do this. And so that gives people like must have and must not have lists as they're out there dating or develop even social, friends.
Yeah.
We have the one-way friends or or there's a reciprocal relationship because it's not just left for intimate relationships.
Right. All relationships, right? All relationships, super powerful. All right. So let's just take a breath. So as we kind of wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to kind of share or add before I ask you that kind of sage advice question?
Okay. Give each other the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes we say things that we wish that we hadn't. Sometimes we're having a bad day. And so I call it give each other the benefit of the doubt and also know and use your redo. A redo is when in the moment you've said something or after you think about it, you come back to the person and say, I need to do a redo. What I wished I had have said is, and then you sort of fill in the blank. It is a very effective repair. The other person gets to hear that you made a mistake, kind of thing. I was right. But you get to show up better. And sometimes in those moments, we're just as heated, we're just as distracted or elevated. And so whether it's something you said or something you wish you had have said or done, these redos are important. So bring those into your relationship with your kids, your family and stuff. In my world, my kids sometimes will say, well, they're not kids anymore. They're adult daughters. But back then they pull it on me. Sounds like you need a redo right now, Mom. I'm like, you're right. I do. So if I had been that brilliant mom, I would wish I had have said this. Okay. So let's go for it. So most people will give you the benefit of the doubt. They'll give you another shot. And the last thing, the sage advice is when you're trying something new, ask for forgiveness, or let the person know you're trying something new. Most people will be patient, more patient with you. Say, like, I haven't tried this before, and I really want to, it's kind of hard for me to say this, or I don't know where to start. But so when you give them that preface, they know it's gonna be flawed. They know that it may be hard, or it's a new skill or new strategy. And so there's a less of a need to be perfect. Kind of like me with my surfing, right? Yeah. Like, it wasn't going to be perfect. I just said, this is going to be new. This is going to be different for me, and I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that. Wow. Some really amazing tips and strategies and conversation today. Thank you so much. If people do want to reach out, and they are ready to kind of work on some of the couple stuff and some of the communication and the connection, where can people find you?
Oh gosh, I'm a lot of places. It's my website is drlizjenkins.com. And so they can just click on there, and there's a complimentary connection call. They can click that, and they can, reach right out to me. I'm on Facebook, Dr. Liz Jenkins, on Instagram, Dr. Liz Jenkins. I have a YouTube channel, again, Dr. Liz Jenkins. Sounds a little, you can find me there. So those are places where you can message me, or, email me type of thing, off of that. But you can quite quickly and effectively just go straight to the website and get a call where it's free. It's, 30 minutes.
Awesome.
We'll chat. I can give you a perspective where you guys are, if you're solo, where you're at, and, give you some tips and strategies. And like on my website and in Facebook and YouTube things, I have several little, I want to say tools, free gifts for couples. Like I have a connection checklist, and it's ways for couples to come together. We talked about them being distant, even in busy times. 3 things to do daily, 3 things to do weekly, 3 things to do monthly. That helps you stay in touch with each other. So when you do have that serious conversation, it doesn't feel like you're being, dragged to the principal's office. It's going to be big and bad. You both have had experience just sitting down and chatting with one another. I guess I'll just say it here. When you do have those conversations, don't pick the war zone. If you fight in the bedroom, don't have those hard conversations in the bedroom. You fight at the kitchen table, pick a new spot, go outside, go for a walk. Humans remember those things, and we take us back to those memories. A lot of unconscious association with place and time and rooms. And I have a funny story coming up. We don't have time to get into it, but anyway, So one of my trigger places is the kitchen. And my husband and I were having a conflict in the kitchen over the kitchen sink. And I didn't really realize why I was so triggered until therapy. And she's like, whoa, she took me right back to childhood when I had a conflict in the kitchen. It's like, holy crap, are you serious? It happens. I know, it's not fun. It's funny. But once you know, boom, like you went and invested in yourself, and now that's not going to be the fighting zone.
Right.
But there's other things that people want. If they're stuck in figuring out how to get creative in dating, I have a tip sheet, a guide for that.
Awesome.
Love language. If you have the book of the love languages sitting on the nightstand and you're fighting about that, just reach out. I have a really quick video and short guide that you guys can do a deep dive, and you can stop fighting about the book that he or she's not reading, and just know where your love language is. That one came out of there were so many fights about the unread book. I said, I got to do something. We're not going to have it.
Wow. That sounds amazing. So many great resources. So thank you. Thank you for your time today and your energy and all the work you do. This is really a service, when you're lifting people up and you're helping them with connection and communication. It serves the planet. So thank you for all you do.
No problem. I love it. And that's why, I created the Couple Smart Restart. And it's sprint, it's focused, and it's high touch, high end. So people can get in, get things back on track, and move on with their life. very quickly and not have to spend, years and years of repeating, feeling disconnected. So
Awesome.
I appreciate the chance to share some of my tips so folks can take it and use what works for them.
Yeah. So thank you. I will, of course, put all that in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And take care.
I will. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.